The rain was relentless, a Seattle staple, hammering the windshield of my beat up Prius as I pulled into the federal courthouse garage. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, a single notification lighting up the screen. Unknown number. My heart kicked against my ribs like it knew something I didn't. I swiped it open, and the words burned into me. Testify, and you're done. No signature, no trace, just digital knife pressed to my throat. I sat there, frozen, the engine ticking down, the garage's fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of angry wasps. I'm Elena Harper, whistleblower, former nonprofit director, and apparently a woman with a target on her back. This wasn't how I pictured my morning. I shoved the phone into my pocket, grabbed my leather satchel, and stepped out. The air smelled of damp concrete and exhaust, the kind of gritty perfume that clung to you. My heels clicked against the pavement, sharp and deliberate, but inside I was a mess of static. I'd spent months building my case, exposing corporate fraud that bled millions from vulnerable communities. My sister, Cassandra, Cassie to the world, Venom to me, was the legal muscle behind the very empire I was trying to dismantle. Today, I was set to testify against her clients, but I knew she'd make it personal. She always did. The garage was eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of an elevator. I tightened my grip on my satchel, the same one I'd carried when I pitched my nonprofit to donors years ago. Back then, I was naive, thinking good intentions could outrun greed. Now, I was 34, battle-scarred, and walking into a courtroom where my own family wanted me silenced. I rounded a concrete pillar, and that's when I saw it. My car's tires, all four, slashed to ribbons. A scrap of paper was tucked under the wiper, flapping in the draft. I yanked it free, my hands shaking. Testify, and you're next. The same words as the text, scrawled in black ink, jagged like the writer was angry. I scanned the garage, pulse hammering. Shadows clung to the corners, but no one moved. I stuffed the note into my pocket and forced myself to keep walking. If Cassie thought she could scare me off, she'd forgotten who I was. The courthouse loomed ahead, all glass and steel, a monument to justice that felt more like a cage. I passed through security, the guard barely glancing at me as he waved me through the metal detector. My badge was waiting at the registration desk, but when the clerk handed it over, my stomach twisted. Instead of Elena Harper, it read, E. Worthless, in bold, mocking letters. That's what the system printed, ma'am, she muttered. You can't enter without it. I clipped the badge to my blazer, the plastic edges biting into my fingers. Across the atrium, Cassie stood in her tailored navy suit, legs crossed, scrolling her phone with a smirk that could cut glass. She raised it, slow and deliberate, the camera flash catching the badge's text. The photo was probably already on Twitter, captioned with something cruel to make her followers laugh. My sister, the corporate attorney with $1 million smile and a heart like a snake. She'd always been the golden child, poised, ruthless, the one our mother bragged about at country club luncheons. I was the quiet one, the dreamer who built a nonprofit to educate underserved kids, only to watch Cassie twist it into her own personal slush fund. I didn't flinch. I straightened my spine, smoothed the badge against my chest, and walked toward the courtroom. Let her play her games. I'd learned long ago that reacting was what she wanted. The hallway was a blur of polished marble and sterile light, the kind of place that made you feel small. My mother, Margaret, was already seated in the gallery, her posture rigid, arms crossed like she was guarding a secret. She didn't look at me. She never did. Not since I started asking questions about the money vanishing from my nonprofit's accounts. To her, I was the problem, the daughter who dared to disrupt the Harper family's perfect facade. The courtroom doors swung open and I slipped inside, taking a seat near the back. The air was heavy with anticipation, whispers rippling through the crowd like static. Jurors shuffled in, their faces a mix of boredom and curiosity. Cassie's legal team, a pack of Ivy League sharks in $1,000 suits, huddled at the counsel table, flipping through files with practiced arrogance. I spotted her among them, leaning in to whisper something that made her lead attorney chuckle. My chest tightened. This wasn't just a hearing, it was a stage, and Cassie had written the script. The judge, Amelia Cross, hadn't arrived yet. I adjusted my blazer, the badge still pinned like a scarlet letter. I wasn't on the witness list, not officially. I was here to support my testimony prep, to watch the preliminary motions before I took the stand tomorrow. At least that's what I'd told myself. Now, I wasn't so sure. The doors opened again, and a man slipped into the back row, his presence quiet but deliberate. He wore a worn navy suit, his dark hair streaked with gray, and his eyes locked on Cassie with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He didn't take notes, didn't check his phone. He just watched, like a predator sizing up its prey. I didn't know him, but something about him felt intentional. The bailiff's voice cut through the hum. All rise. Judge Cross swept in, her black robe billowing, her expression unreadable. She settled behind the bench, and the room fell silent. Cassie's attorney, a slick-haired man named Preston Wells, stood first, smoothing his tie with theatrical flair. Your Honor, he began, his voice dripping with authority, we'd like to open with a brief presentation to provide context for the case environment. Context. The word landed like a stone in my gut. A projector hummed to life, and the screen behind the judge lit up. My face appeared, 10 feet tall, mid-blink, looking startled and small. Below it, the badge, E. Worthless. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A juror coughed. Another leaned forward, squinting. My cheeks burned, but I kept my eyes forward, refusing to let them see me crack. Wells gestured at the screen, his tone almost sympathetic. This image, taken this morning, shows Miss Alina Harper inserting herself into these proceedings, uninvited and potentially unstable. Unstable. The word was a blade, and he wielded it with precision. My nails dug into the bench, the wood smooth under my palms. I wanted to scream, to demand how they got that photo, but I stayed still. Wells clicked to the next slide, a time-stamped metadata sheet claiming the image was snapped at 6:45 AIEM, before the courthouse even opened. That was impossible. I'd arrived at 7:20, my parking receipt time-stamped in my purse. I opened my mouth to object, but the words caught in my throat. They'd faked it. Cassie had faked, just like she'd faked so much else. The judge's voice was calm but sharp. Is Miss Harper on the witness list? Wells smirked, just enough to make my blood boil. No, Your Honor. She appeared of her own volition, wearing that badge, and, well... He let the sentence trail off, shrugging like it pained him to say more. Some people don't understand boundaries. I felt the room tilt. The lights too bright, the air too thin. Across the aisle, Cassie sat perfectly still, her hands folded, her lips twitching with the ghost of a smile. She didn't need to look at me. She knew I'd see her, knew I'd feel the weight of her victory. This wasn't new. She'd done this before, years ago, at a gala in 2017. I was 26, riding high on a grant I'd secured for my nonprofit. She'd handed me a glass of champagne, her smile too warm, too sisterly. I drank, and within minutes my vision blurred, my legs buckled. I collapsed in front of 200 donors, slurring incoherently as Cassie helped me to a car. Later, she told everyone I'd had a breakdown, that I was fragile. The truth? She'd spiked my drink, a fact I only learned months later when a waiter confessed he'd seen her tamper with it. By then, the damage was done, my reputation was ash, and Cassie was the hero who saved me. Now she was doing it again, but bigger, bolder, in a federal courtroom with the world watching. I glanced at the man in the back. Nathan, I'd later learn. His eyes hadn't left Cassie, not once. He leaned forward slightly, like he was waiting for her to slip. I didn't know what he wanted, but his presence was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. The projector clicked again, and a new document appeared, a psychiatric report dated October 2017, claiming I'd been institutionalized for emotional dysregulation, and delusional tendencies. My breath caught. That was a lie. I'd never been institutionalized. After the gala, I'd spent 3 days in a private clinic, pressured by my mother to rest. Cassie had paid off an administrator to generate a fake report, a fact I'd uncovered only last year when I started digging into her financial trails. The report was sealed, or so I thought. How had she gotten it? Wells droned on, his voice a polished weapon. This report, Your Honor, was provided by a concerned party. It raises serious questions about Miss Harper's credibility as a whistleblower. The gallery murmured, jurors scribbling notes. I wanted to stand, to shout that it was fabricated, but my legs felt like lead. The judge's eyes flicked to me, not unkindly, but with a weight that said, "Prove it, or this sticks." I forced my voice to steady. Your Honor, that report is false. I was never institutionalized. My sister— My words were cut off as Wells raised a hand, all mock politeness. Miss Harper, you'll have your chance to speak. Let's not disrupt the process. The judge nodded and I sank back into my seat, my face burning. Cassie's smile widened, just enough for me to see. The session broke for recess, and I stumbled into the hallway, my chest tight. I needed air, needed to think. The restroom was a few steps away, and I slipped inside, splashing cold water on my face. The door creaked behind me, and I froze. A figure in a black hoodie stood there, face shadowed, voice low and rasping. Drop the case or you won't leave this building. Before I could respond, they were gone, the door swinging shut. My knees buckled, and I gripped the sink, the threat echoing in my skull. Who was that? One of Cassie's hired goons? Or someone else? Someone bigger? I made it back to the hallway, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. A new email had landed, no sender name, just a subject line. Look for the red folder. The body was blank. I stared at it, my mind racing. A red folder? Was this a trap or a clue? I deleted the email, paranoid it was being tracked. But the words burned into me. I didn't have time to process it. A clerk handed me a coffee, muttering something about it being compliments of the staff. I took a sip, grateful for the warmth, but within seconds, my vision swam. My legs wobbled, and I grabbed the wall, the cup slipping from my hand. Sedative. Someone had laced it. I forced myself to stay upright, gulping air until the dizziness passed. The hallway was empty, but I felt eyes on me, invisible and everywhere. Back in the courtroom, the mood had shifted. The judge was reading an unmarked envelope, her brow furrowed. She looked up, her voice clipped. Counsel Chambers, now. Cassie's attorney protested, but she waved him off. I followed, my heart in my throat, the badge still pinned to my chest like a brand. The chambers were small, all dark wood and leather, a contrast to the courtroom's sterile glare. Cassie stood too close, her perfume sharp and cloying. The judge didn't sit. She held up the envelope. This contains evidence that Ms. Cassandra Harper accessed sealed medical records using stolen FBI credentials. Care to explain? Cassie's face didn't change, but her eyes flickered, just for a second. That's absurd, Your Honor. I'd never— She was cut off by a new voice, calm and cutting. Nathan Cole stepped forward, his suit suddenly looking less worn, more purposeful. I'm with a whistleblower network, he said, sliding a file across the desk. We've tracked Miss Harper's activities for months. She bribed a hospital administrator to forge that 2017 report and used hacked credentials to unseal it. That's a federal offense. The room went still. I didn't breathe. Cassie's attorney stammered, but Nathan kept going, his voice like steel. We have logs, timestamps, and a recorded call between Miss Harper and the administrator. It's all here. He tapped the file, and I saw Cassie's hand twitch, like she wanted to snatch it away. The judge's eyes narrowed. This is serious. We're pausing until I review this. Then it happened. A low hum, and the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, the only sound the click of a lock engaging. Emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows. Cassie was closer now. Too close, a letter opener glinting in her hand. "One call," she hissed, her breath hot against my ear, "and you're back in a psych ward by tonight. You think you can ruin me?" My pulse roared, but I didn't move. The blade was inches from my side, her grip unsteady but dangerous. I opened my mouth to scream, but a shrill alarm blared, the door unlocking with a thud. Nathan stood in the hallway, his hand on the emergency panel, his eyes locked on Cassie. "Step back," he said, and she did, the letter opener clattering to the floor. The judge ordered us back to the courtroom, her voice tight. I could barely think, the adrenaline crashing through me. As we filed out, a young woman, Lila, her badge red, brushed past me, slipping a USB drive into my hand. "Cassie's not the only one watching," she whispered, then vanished into the crowd. I clutched the drive, my mind spinning. What was on it? Who was Lila? And what did Nathan mean when he leaned in just before we re-entered the courtroom and muttered, "There's a bigger player behind her. Find the red folder before they do"? The gavel fell, signaling the session's end for the day, but I knew this was just the beginning. Cassie's eyes met mine as she left, not with fear, but with a promise. She wasn't done. Neither was I. The rain was still falling when I stepped outside, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket, the red folder's mystery pulling me forward. I'd survived today. Barely. But tomorrow, I'd need more than luck. I'd need the truth, and I'd fight like hell to find it. The Seattle rain hadn't let up, a relentless curtain of gray that mirrored the storm inside me. I stood outside the federal courthouse, the USB drive Lila had slipped me, burning a hole in my pocket. Its contents, a mystery I wasn't sure I was ready to unravel. The red folder, Nathan's cryptic warning, the slashed tires, the poisoned coffee, the stranger in the hoodie. Each was a thread in a web I could feel tightening around me. My name is Elena Harper, and I'd just survived the first day of a war I hadn't chosen. But surviving wasn't enough. I needed to fight, to claw my way to the truth, no matter how sharp its edges. Back in my apartment, a cramped one-bedroom overlooking Puget Sound, I locked the door and triple-checked the deadbolt. The space was sparse, bare walls, a thrift store couch, a coffee table littered with legal files. My life had been stripped down to essentials since I'd blown the whistle on Cassie's corporate clients, a tech conglomerate siphoning millions from my nonprofit, the Harper Education Initiative. I'd built that organization from nothing, pouring my soul into programs for underserved kids, only to watch Cassie twist it into a front for her own greed. Now she was fighting to bury me, and she wasn't fighting alone. I plugged the USB into my laptop, my hands trembling. The screen flickered, revealing a single folder labeled Eclipse. Inside were audio files, grainy security footage, and a PDF titled Monarch Protocols. My pulse quickened. The first audio was a conversation, Cassie's voice unmistakable, smooth as silk, but laced with venom. "She's a liability," she said. "If Elena testifies, we're all exposed. The mogul won't forgive that." A man's voice, low and gravelly, responded. "Then make sure she doesn't. You know what's at stake." The mogul. Nathan's warning echoed in my head. Who was this? And what did they want with the red folder? The footage was from the 2017 gala, the night Cassie spiked my drink. It showed me laughing, glass in hand, then staggering, my face pale as I collapsed. But there was something new, a figure in the background, blurred but deliberate, slipping a vial into Cassie's purse. My breath caught. The juror's note from today flashed in my mind. Check the 2017 gala footage. You weren't alone. Was this the proof? And who had sent it? The PDF was denser, a list of financial transactions tied to shell companies, Blue Wave Solutions, Nexus Group, Pine Trust, names I had seen before in the audit that exposed Cassie's embezzlement. But these weren't just shell companies. They were linked to a tech titan under FBI scrutiny, someone Nathan had hinted was pulling Cassie's strings. I snapped the laptop shut, my heart pounding. This wasn't just about Cassie anymore. This was bigger, darker, a conspiracy that reached beyond the courtroom. I needed to file a federal whistleblower motion, naming Cassie and her clients, but every step felt like walking into a minefield. The death threat, the slashed tires, the sedative. They weren't warnings. The next morning, I hailed a taxi to the courthouse, my body still aching from the adrenaline of yesterday. The driver, a grizzled man with a Seahawks cap, kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "You that whistleblower lady?" he asked, his tone curious but guarded. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just trying to do what's right." He grunted, then said, "Careful. People like that don't play fair." Before I could respond, a black SUV roared out of a side street, slamming into the taxi's side. The world spun. Glass shattered, and my head cracked against the window. Pain exploded behind my eyes, but I stayed conscious, gripping the seat as the driver cursed. The SUV peeled away, its plates obscured. "You okay?" the driver shouted, blood trickling from his forehead. I nodded, dazed but alive. Bruised, battered, but not broken. Not yet. At the courthouse, security was tighter, the air thick with tension. Reporters swarmed the entrance, shouting questions about Cassie's social media stunt with my badge. I pushed through, my new badge, Alina Harper, printed correctly this time, clipped to my blazer. Inside, the courtroom was a pressure cooker, the gallery packed with spectators, their whispers like static. The session was closed to the public now, reporters ushered out with grumbled protests. Only legal teams, essential staff, and involved parties remained. Cassie sat at the council table, her navy suit pristine, her face a mask of calm. But her eyes, when they met mine, were electric with rage. Judge Amelia Cross took the bench, her expression sterner than yesterday. "Let's proceed," she said, her voice cutting through the hum. Cassie's attorney, Preston Wells, stood, his smirk sharper than ever. "Your Honor, we'd like to call an expert witness to provide character context." My stomach twisted. The clerk announced, Dr. Victor Klein. A tall, lean man with a goatee and a cold, polished demeanor strode to the stand. I knew the name. Klein was a disgraced psychiatrist stripped of his license for fabricating patient records. What was Cassie playing at? Klein swore in, his voice smooth as oil. "I'm a clinical psychiatrist with 22 years of experience," he began. "In 2018, I was consulted regarding Alina Harper, then director of the Harper Education Initiative. Colleagues reported her stalking behavior, obsessive emails, unannounced visits, erratic outbursts." The gallery gasped. My blood ran cold. Stalking? I'd never stalked anyone. My colleagues had been my allies, until Cassie turned them against me with lies. Klein continued, "Her behavior suggested paranoia and emotional dysregulation, consistent with the 2017 psychiatric report." I gripped my satchel, my knuckles white. This was a lie and I could prove it. I leaned toward my attorney, a pro bono advocate named Marcus Tate, and whispered, "I have the originals." He nodded, his jaw tight. Marcus stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Dr. Klein's testimony relies on fabricated evidence. We have time-stamped email records disproving these claims." Wells scoffed, but Judge Cross raised a hand. "Present your evidence, Mr. Tate." I handed Marcus a folder, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. He projected the emails onto the screen. My correspondence with colleagues, calm and professional, time-stamped to show no gaps or edits. The stalking emails Klein referenced were forgeries, their metadata altered to frame me. The courtroom fell silent, jurors leaning forward. Wells stammered, We'll need time to verify." But Cross cut him off. You'll verify now, counsel. This court doesn't tolerate fraud. Cassie's composure cracked, her fingers twitching on the table. For the first time, she looked rattled, her eyes darting to Klein, who avoided her gaze. I felt a spark of triumph, but it was short-lived. The real fight was coming. During a brief recess, I slipped into the hallway, needing air. That's when I saw her. Leela, the intern, hovering near a vending machine. She caught my eye and nodded toward a trash can. I frowned but approached, fishing out a crumpled note tucked inside a candy wrapper. The red folder is in the mogul's safe. Don't trust Nathan. My pulse spiked. Don't trust Nathan? He'd saved me in chambers, exposed Cassie's crimes? Or had he? Was he playing a deeper game? Back in the courtroom, I took the stand, my heart pounding. Marcus had prepped me, but nothing could prepare me for the weight of this moment. I held a notarized letter from my late mentor, Dr. Evelyn Chen, the woman who'd believed in me when no one else did. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady. This letter, notarized in 2020, proves I founded the Harper Education Initiative. Cassie was falsely credited to secure elite donors, a lie my mother endorses. I read aloud, each word a hammer. Elena Harper designed every program, secured every grant. I regret allowing Cassandra to take credit, a decision driven by pressure from their mother, Margaret Harper. The gallery murmured, jurors scribbling furiously. Cassie shot to her feet, her voice a shriek. That letter's a fake! Evelyn would never betray me. Her outburst was raw, unscripted, and it shattered her polished facade. Judge Cross banged her gavel. Sit down, Ms. Harper, or you'll be held in contempt. Forensic analysis, ordered on the spot, confirmed the letter's authenticity, down to Evelyn's signature and the notary's seal. Cassie sank into her chair, her face pale, her hands trembling. Then chaos. The courtroom's live feed, meant for internal records, was hacked. Cassie screamed, that letter's a fake, blasted across social media, trending within minutes. Reporters outside erupted, their shouts audible through the doors. My phone buzzed with notifications, the world dissecting my sister's meltdown. I felt no joy, only a hollow ache. This wasn't victory, it was exposure, and it came at a cost. A juror, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, slipped me a note as she passed. Check the 2017 gala footage. You weren't alone. My breath caught. The same words as the USB footage. Who was she, and what did she know? Before I could process it, Judge Cross clutched her chest, her face ashen. Recess, she gasped, and medics rushed in. She was whisked away, diagnosed later with a stress-induced heart episode. The courtroom buzzed, uncertainty crackling like static. Enter Judge Ryan Harper, my ex-fiancé, striding in with a black robe and a face carved from stone. The gallery erupted. Cassie laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. This is a joke, right? Her ex gets to decide now? Ryan's voice was ice. Ms. Harper, I filed a recusal from all personal affiliations weeks ago. My assignment is procedural, confirmed by the clerk's office. Shall we proceed? Cassie shrank back, her bravado fading. I felt a pang, not for her, but for Ryan. We'd ended things 2 years ago, when my whistleblowing drove a wedge between us. He'd wanted me to stay quiet, to protect myself. I couldn't, now. Here he was, holding the gavel. Ryan unveiled an audit of the Harper Initiative, his voice a scalpel. This report shows Cassandra Harper embezzled $750,000, 0 cents through shell companies, Blue Wave Solutions, Nexus Group, Pine Trust. Funds were laundered to clear her gambling debts tied to a tech mogul under FBI investigation. The gallery gasped. Cassie's attorney, Wells, pressed a hand to his brow, sensing the case slipping away. Ryan continued, Elena Harper's trust share was frozen and used as collateral without her consent. This court finds cause for a civil breach inquiry and refers the matter to the Department of Justice. Cassie flinched, her eyes darting for an exit that wasn't there. Wells leapt up, waving a motion. Your Honor, we request an emergency injunction. Judge Harper's bias taints this ruling. Ryan didn't blink, passing the motion to the clerk. Judge Evelyn Ward, a retired federal judge, assumed oversight, her presence commanding. I submitted a second affidavit from Evelyn Chen, detailing Cassie's blackmail of board members to secure her control over the initiative. We read it silently, her lips a thin line, then ruled. The motion is denied. Cassandra Harper is removed from all Harper Initiative records. Elena Harper is named sole founder. The courtroom exhaled, the weight of truth settling like dust. Cassie sat, hollow under the LED lights, her empire crumbling. I felt no triumph, only clarity. I'd carried her lies for years, let them define me. No more. Nathan caught my eye as we filed out, his voice low. The mogul knows about the red folder, find it first. I nodded, but Lila's note burned in my mind. Don't trust Nathan. Who was the real enemy here? 4 weeks later, the Harper Community Hub stood, reborn, its glass walls and vibrant murals a beacon for at-risk youth. The court had clawed back every stolen dollar, shutting down Cassie's shell companies. She'd issued a vague PR statement blaming systemic misunderstandings, never mentioning me. I'd rejected media deals, letting her lies drown in the noise. Ryan visited once, standing beside me as kids painted in the hub's art room. Do you want me to stay? He asked, his voice soft. I shook my head. I need to find myself first, without anyone holding my hand. He nodded, leaving without a fight. A teen, Maya, approached me in the art room, her eyes bright. She held out a blue origami star, its folds precise but imperfect. I made this for you, she said. I froze. Years ago, I'd given Cassie a star like this, a gesture of sisterhood. She'd crushed it, laughing at my pointless sentiment. Maya's star was different, warm from her hands, a gift without strings. Thank you, I whispered, my voice. She beamed. You look like you needed it. Outside, Seattle's drizzle kissed my face. I held the star, its edges catching the light. The red folder, the mogul, the threats. They still loomed, but for now, I was free. Not because I'd won, but because I'd refused to disappear. Truth wasn't a firework. It was a star, folded with care, shining through the rain.